First Contact and Hubris. The crystalline spires of the Meridian Command Center pulsed with a soft azure glow as first observer, Cax-Till examined the holographic display of the newly discovered planet. Their crystalline forms sparkled as they manipulated the projection, zooming in on the blue-green world that hung like a jewel in the vast darkness of space. Primitive, Cax-Till's voice resonated through their crystalline chamber, the sound carrying both curiosity and dismissal. Yet another carbon-based species struggling through their industrial phase. The data streams flowing through their consciousness painted a clear picture. A civilization barely 2 centuries into their technological advancement, still reliant on fossil fuels and primitive nuclear fission. The Meridian Collective had encountered countless such species in their 10,000 years of expansion. As beings of pure crystal and energy, they had long since transcended the limitations of organic life. Their empire spanned 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, built upon the resources of 1,000 conquered worlds. Second observer Zinra's form shimmered with cautionary patterns. The preliminary scans show some anomalies. First observer. Their technological progression is erratic. They achieve powered flight to space travel in mere decades, yet they continue to use inefficient internal combustion engines. Their weapons technology advanced from primitive chemical propellants to thermonuclear devices in less than a century. Cax-Till's crystalline structure emitted a frequency that would translate to laughter in organic species. Chaos is the hallmark of primitive races. Second observer. Their lack of unified purpose makes them predictable in their unpredictability. The strategic assessment continued as more data poured in from the cloaked observation platforms orbiting Earth. Humans fought among themselves constantly, divided by invisible lines drawn on their planet's surface. Their cities were inefficient, their resource usage wasteful, their political systems fragmented. Their population centers are particularly vulnerable, Cax-Till noted, highlighting the sprawling metropolitan areas across the planet's surface. No energy shields, minimal air defense capabilities, and completely dependent on centralized power distribution. A standard conquest protocol should suffice. But Zinra's crystalline structure continued to pulse with patterns of concern. First observer, I must note that this species has demonstrated unusual adaptability. Our historical records show no other civilization advancing from horse-drawn transportation to rudimentary space exploration in less than 2 centuries. All the more reason to act swiftly, Cax-Till declared. The longer we wait, the more time they have to develop. The collective requires this system's resources, particularly the heavy elements in the asteroid belt and the gas giant's atmospheric compounds. The command center's spires resonated with new energy as Cax-Till initiated the conquest protocols. Throughout the vast fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system, crystalline warriors began their preparation cycles. The Meridian war machines, massive crystalline constructs capable of channeling devastating energy weapons, powered up their cores. Standard conquest protocol authorized, Cax-Till announced, their form glowing with the authority of their position. First wave will target their military installations and command structures. Second wave will neutralize industrial capacity. Third wave will establish resource extraction points. Zinra's final warning came as they monitored the humans' communications networks. They tell stories, first observer, stories of resistance against overwhelming odds. Their entertainment media is filled with scenarios of their species prevailing against superior forces. Fiction is the refuge of the primitive mind. Cax-Till dismissed. Reality will educate them quickly enough. Begin the attack sequence. I expect this operation to be concluded within 1 planetary rotation. As the first Meridian ships began their approach toward Earth, none of the crystalline beings considered that their greatest mistake wasn't underestimating human military capability. It was failing to understand that humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to evolve, adapt, and overcome. The invasion orders were sent, and the massive crystalline fleet began its advance toward the blue planet. In their 10,000 years of conquest, the Meridians had never failed to subdue a target world. They had no reason to believe this time would be any different. They would learn, All too soon, that humanity had spent its entire existence preparing for this moment, though they never knew it. Every war, every conflict, every struggle for survival had been unknowingly training them for the day they would face an enemy from the stars. As the first Meridian ships entered Earth's detection range, humanity was about to teach the galaxy's oldest empire a lesson about the true meaning of warfare, adaptation, and survival. The unexpected defense. The first signs that this conquest would be different came 3 hours into the invasion. Caxtil watched in disbelief as another crystalline warship shattered into a million glittering fragments, brought down not by advanced energy weapons, but by a swarm of crude ballistic missiles launched from primitive submarines hidden in Earth's oceans. Impossible. Caxtil's form pulsed with agitation. Their weapons are based on chemical propellants and simple fusion warheads. Our shields should be impenetrable to such primitive technology. They're modulating the yield of their nuclear devices, Zinra reported, their crystalline structure vibrating with urgency. Each attack tests a different frequency until they find one that resonates with our shield harmonics. They're learning, adapting, in real time. The humans had taken one look at the crystalline structure of the Meridian ships and done what they did best: improvised. Nuclear detonations at precisely calculated distances created shockwaves that matched the resonant frequency of the Meridian shields, shattering them like glass under sonic vibrations. But it wasn't just their military response that caught the Meridians off guard. When the crystalline beings attempted to disable Earth's communications by destroying key satellites, they discovered that humans had anticipated such a tactic. A massive network of hardened underground fiber optic cables kept their information flowing. Military commands continued to be issued, strategies shared, and counterattacks coordinated. They're using their planet's magnetic field to detect our cloaked ships, another observer reported, their crystal form flickering with confusion. They repurposed their primitive magnetic sensing equipment within hours of discovering its effectiveness. Caxtil's frustration manifested as angry red pulses through their crystalline body. The carefully planned three-wave attack had devolved into chaos. Human fighters, though laughably primitive by Meridian standards, proved incredibly difficult to hit. They flew erratically, used their planet's weather patterns for cover, and employed electronic warfare techniques that played havoc with Meridian targeting systems. Their military doctrine is unusual, Zinra noted, analyzing the patterns of human resistance. They don't fight like a unified force. Each region, each unit, adapts differently. There's no single strategy to counter. The humans had turned their very primitiveness into an advantage. Their diverse military forces, rather than following a single sophisticated doctrine, employed countless different strategies: American stealth technology, Russian electronic warfare, Chinese cyber attacks, European precision strikes. Each approached the problem differently, forcing the Meridians to fight 1,000 small wars rather than one large one. But it was the civilian response that truly baffled the crystalline invaders. Rather than cower in fear, human civilians began contributing to the war effort in ways the Meridians couldn't comprehend. Engineers worldwide worked to understand the crystalline technology from scattered debris. Hackers probed for weaknesses in Meridian communication frequencies. Even children contributed, their video game skills proving surprisingly applicable to operating hastily developed drone swarms. They're attacking our command and control systems with music, a subordinate observer reported incredulously. The humans had discovered that certain sound frequencies, when properly amplified and directed, could disrupt Meridian consciousness. Rock concerts were being repurposed into weapons, using massive speaker systems to create debilitating sonic attacks against Meridian ground forces. Their adaptation rate exceeds all known parameters, Zinra warned. They're not fighting according to any strategic logic we understand. They're improvising, creating new weapons and tactics faster than we can develop countermeasures. Caxtil watched as another wave of human attacks began, each one different from the last. Electromagnetic pulses from hastily modified power stations, weaponize sound waves from repurposed entertainment systems, swarms of remote-controlled vehicles loaded with explosives tuned to crystalline resonant frequencies. Each attack taught them something new about their enemy's vulnerabilities, and each lesson was immediately shared and adapted upon. Full tactical withdrawal, Caxtil finally ordered, their once brilliant crystalline form now dulled with the strain of continuous tactical adjustments. We must reassess our entire conquest protocol. As the Meridian fleet retreated to a safe distance, they faced an uncomfortable reality. In just 24 hours, humanity had done more than resist. They had begun to turn the tide. The crystalline beings had expected to find primitive savages. Instead, they had awakened a species that turned everything they touched into a weapon, adapted to every strategy, and seemed to thrive in the chaos of warfare. The invasion wasn't over, but one thing had become clear. The Meridians would need to fundamentally rethink everything they thought they knew about warfare. Because humans weren't fighting like a primitive species should. They were fighting like humanity always had, with desperate innovation, relentless adaptation, and a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Understanding the enemy. The crystalline corridors of the Meridian flagship resonated with discord as the High Command convened an emergency session. Caxtil stood before the Council of Observers, their usually pristine form showing stress fractures from the strain of the past week's failures. Explain. The Grand Observer's massive crystalline form pulsed with barely contained fury. How a species that still uses combustion engines has managed to destroy 1/3 of our invasion fleet. They don't think like any species we've encountered. Caxtil's response carried harmonics of frustration and bewilderment. Their chaos isn't a weakness, it's a weapon. The holographic display showed scenes from the ongoing conflict that defied all Meridian military doctrine. A teenager in Seoul had reprogrammed gaming servers into a distributed computing network that cracked Meridian communication codes. Australian Aboriginal hunters had discovered that their traditional songlines, when properly amplified, could disrupt crystalline molecular structures. Indian tech support centers had been converted into warfare analysis hubs, studying patterns in Meridian behavior that even the crystalline beings hadn't recognized in themselves. The humans have no unified defense protocol, Zinra explained, projecting data streams that showed the dizzying array of countermeasures humanity had developed. Instead, they have millions of individuals independently developing solutions. When one works, they share it instantly across their information networks. They're not fighting as an army. They're fighting as a species. The council chamber hummed with disturbed frequencies as they watched footage of human adaptability. In Japan, bullet train engineers had modified their magnetic levitation systems into weapons that could shatter crystalline warriors. Brazilian sound engineers had discovered that their carnival parade systems, when modified, could create resonance fields that disrupted Meridian energy weapons. Their primitive nuclear weapons should have been useless against our shields, another council member observed. How did they adapt so quickly? They didn't adapt their weapons to our shields. Caxtil's response carried tones of reluctant admiration. They adapted our shields to their weapons. Human scientists discovered that our crystalline technology responds to specific frequencies. They didn't try to build better weapons. They found ways to make our own technology work against us. The display shifted to show human entertainment media. Movies, books, games, stories of alien invasions, of humanity facing overwhelming odds. They'd been preparing for this without knowing it, Zinra noted. Their fiction wasn't just entertainment. It was a cultural preparation for extraterrestrial conflict. They'd spent centuries imagining how to fight beings like us. But perhaps most disturbing to the Meridian Command was humanity's psychological warfare. Humans had quickly realized that the crystalline beings' transparent forms revealed their emotional states through color variations. Now, human forces were using this knowledge to psychological effect, projecting images and patterns that induced stress in Meridian troops. They're learning too fast, a council member warned. Every engagement teaches them more about our weaknesses. They're not just fighting us. They're studying us. The Grand Observer's form darkened with concern as they reviewed reports of human innovation. In Antarctica, researchers had developed a way to use the planet's magnetic field to detect cloaked meridian ships. In the Amazon, indigenous shamans had found that certain ritual frequencies could harmonize with and disrupt meridian consciousness. Every human culture, every field of knowledge, was being turned toward the war effort. We assumed their technological inferiority made them primitive, Caxtil admitted. We fail to understand that their technology reflects their nature. They don't build perfect, crystalline systems like ours. They build redundant, adaptable, imperfect systems that can be repurposed and modified. Everything they create can be turned into something else. The council chamber filled with discordant frequencies as they grappled with this revelation. The Meridians had spent millennia perfecting their crystalline technology, creating systems of perfect order and harmony. But humanity's chaos, their imperfection, their constant drive to modify and adapt, had turned into their greatest strength. They're not just fighting back, Zinra concluded, their form pulsing with urgent frequencies. They're evolving. Each day of this conflict makes them stronger, more knowledgeable, more dangerous, and they're beginning to share what they've learned with other species we've conquered. The implications sent shockwaves through the Council. For the first time in their history, the Meridians face not just military defeat, but the possibility that their entire approach to warfare, based on perfect, unchanging crystalline principles, might be fundamentally flawed. As the Council debated their next move, reports continued to stream in of new human innovations, new adaptations, new ways of turning the Meridians' own perfection against them. The species they had dismissed as primitive was teaching the galaxy's oldest empire a harsh lesson about the power of imperfection, adaptation, and relentless innovation. The Great Reversal. Multiple breaches detected in the Meridian home system's outer defense grid. The crystalline monitoring stations pulsed with alarm frequencies as human ships emerged from hyperspace. Not the crude vessels they had first encountered, but hybrid craft that merged Earth's raw industrial capability with reverse-engineered Meridian technology. Caxtil watched in horror as the impossible unfolded before them. Just 6 months after first contact, humanity had not only repelled the invasion, but had launched a counteroffensive into the heart of Meridian space. The human ships were ugly by Meridian standards, asymmetrical, overbuilt, wrapped in layers of redundant systems, but they were terrifyingly effective. How did they achieve faster-than-light travel so quickly? A council member demanded, their form crackling with distress patterns. They didn't decrypt our drive technology, Zinra explained, projecting analysis streams. They looked at our crystalline hyperspace matrices and realized they could achieve the same effect with sound waves. They're using modified concert hall acoustics to create hyperspace bubbles. It's crude, inefficient, and shouldn't work, but it does. The human assault on the Meridian home system demonstrated everything that made them terrifying. Their ships carried no single weapon system, but instead bristled with dozens of different approaches. Sonic disruptors based on rock concert equipment, magnetic pulse generators reverse-engineered from MRI machines, crystalline resonance weapons developed by opera singers working with physicists. They're not using our technology, Caxtil realized, watching human ships shrug off hits that should have destroyed them. They're using their understanding of our principles to enhance their own technology. Every weapon, every defense, is something they already had, just modified to work against us. The humans had turned the Meridians' greatest strength, their crystalline nature, into their greatest vulnerability. Every aspect of Meridian technology was based on perfect crystalline harmonies. The humans simply had to disrupt those harmonies to devastating effect. New attack pattern detected, a sensor operator reported. The human fleet was broadcasting what seemed to be music, a chaotic mix of different Earth styles, from classical orchestras to heavy metal. The crystalline defense platforms began to vibrate in sympathy, their perfect structures unable to handle the complexity of human musical expression. But it wasn't just the military technology that made humanity's counterattacks so effective. They had brought their entire culture to war. Human ships carried scientists, engineers, musicians, and artists. Every new encounter with Meridian technology was met with multiple approaches, multiple perspectives, multiple solutions. They've reached the inner system, Zinra reported, and they're broadcasting a message in harmony frequencies we can't block. The message boomed through every crystalline structure in the Meridian capital. We did not start this war. We did not want this war. But we will end it. Surrender now, or face the full creativity of human warfare. To emphasize their point, the human fleet demonstrated their latest innovation. They had discovered that certain combinations of Earth foods, when processed properly, could be used to grow crystals that interfered with Meridian consciousness. They were literally weaponizing cuisine, turning everything from rock candy to sea salt into tools of war. Their ships are launching some kind of pods, a defensive coordinator reported. The pods turned out to be filled with modified speaker systems, each broadcasting a different form of Earth music. Classical music disrupted Meridian shield harmonics. Jazz confused their targeting systems. Rock and roll created sympathetic vibrations that stressed crystalline structures. The Meridian defense fleet found itself fighting an enemy that approached every engagement like a problem-solving exercise. Human ships would probe for weaknesses, experiment with different approaches, and instantly share successful tactics across their fleet. They fought like scientists conducting experiments, with hypothesis, observation, and rapid adaptation. They're not trying to destroy us, Caxtil realized, watching the methodical human advance. They're demonstrating their capability. Every attack is a carefully calculated display of what they can do to our entire civilization if we force them to. The human fleet had positioned itself in a formation that the Meridians initially dismissed as tactically unsound. Then they began broadcasting a complex interference pattern, mixing music, magnetic fields, and crystalline resonance frequencies in ways that threatened to shatter the very foundations of Meridian society. Final warning received, Zinra announced. They say they've identified the resonance frequency of our planetary core. They can destroy our entire world with a sufficiently powerful harmony disruption. The council chamber fell silent, the crystalline beings finally understanding the full implications of what they had awakened. Humanity hadn't just adapted to fight them. They had comprehensively deconstructed every aspect of Meridian civilization and found ways to turn it against itself. As the council debated their response, the human fleet waited patiently, their ships continuing to broadcast their symphony of destruction. A message written in the language of physics, music, and warfare that even the crystalline beings could understand. Never mistake technological advancement for superiority. A new paradigm. In the aftermath of what would become known as the Harmony War, the galaxy's power structure underwent a fundamental shift. The Meridian Collective, which had stood unchallenged for 10 millennia, signed the Treaty of Terra not in a grand crystalline palace, but in a humble United Nations conference room in Geneva. Remarkable, Caxtil observed, their crystalline form carefully modulated to show peaceful intentions as they watched humans go about their daily lives. They've already returned to their regular activities, as if defeating an interstellar empire was simply another item on their to-do list. The terms of peace had been characteristically human, practical, adaptable, and surprisingly generous. The Meridians would release their subjugated worlds, transform their empire into a cooperative federation, and share their technology. In return, humanity would share their unique perspective on innovation and problem-solving. They're teaching our scientists about music, Zinra reported, monitoring the cultural exchange programs. Not as a weapon, but as art. They say understanding harmony as creation, rather than perfection, will help us evolve. The impact of the war rippled across known space. Other species, inspired by humanity's victory, began to experiment with their own forms of adaptive technology. The rigid hierarchies of galactic civilization started to crack, replaced by a more dynamic, collaborative approach to advancement. Their universities are fascinating, a Meridian cultural observer noted. They deliberately expose young humans to conflicting ideas, teaching them to question everything. They believe uncertainty breeds innovation. Perhaps the most profound change was within Meridian society itself. The species that had prided itself on crystalline perfection began to explore the beauty of imperfection. Some younger Meridians even started experimenting with introducing controlled flaws into their structures, creating new patterns of thought and consciousness. "They've turned our defeat into a revolution," Caxtil admitted during a council session. "Not through force, but through the power of their ideas. Their chaos is infectious." The humans, for their part, approached galactic citizenship with the same adaptability they had shown in war. They eagerly learned from other species while sharing their own insights. Earth became a hub of interstellar innovation, where the precision of crystalline technology merged with human creativity to create entirely new fields of science. They've established something called an interstellar jazz band, Zinra reported with a mixture of confusion and fascination. Meridian crystalline harmonics combined with human musical improvisation. The performances are unpredictable, but strangely compelling. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity continued to surprise. They didn't seek to dominate, as the Meridians had. Instead, they connected, adapted, shared, and innovated. Their universities welcomed alien students, their industries collaborated with extraterrestrial corporations, and their culture embraced new influences while maintaining its essential human character. "Do you understand now why we couldn't conquer them?" Caxtil asked a group of young Meridians. "We saw their chaos as weakness because we couldn't imagine strength taking any form other than perfect order. But their chaos was evolution in action, constant change, constant adaptation, constant growth." A century after the war, the galaxy had transformed. The rigid hierarchies of the past gave way to a more dynamic civilization, one that valued diversity of approach and thought. The Meridians remained among the most advanced species technologically, but they had learned to value more than just technological perfection. "We fought the humans once," Caxtil would often tell younger generations, "and in losing, we found a better way to exist." Their greatest weapon wasn't their adaptability in war, but their ability to turn enemies into partners in peace. As stars wheeled overhead, humanity continued to do what it had always done: question, explore, adapt, and grow. They had taken their place among the stars not as conquerors or subjects, but as innovators and catalysts for change. Their primitive nature, which had once drawn the Meridians' scorn, had become the spark that ignited a new age of galactic civilization. The message they had taught the galaxy was simple but profound. True strength lies not in perfection, but in the ability to adapt, to change, and to grow. The Crystal Empire had shattered, but from its fragments, something far more valuable had emerged, a civilization that understood that the most beautiful harmonies often come from the most unexpected combinations. "We fought the humans once," became a common saying among the Meridians, and in doing so, we found our future. The war that began with an attempt to crush humanity's chaos had ended by spreading that creative chaos across the stars, forever changing the way civilizations would grow and interact. In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating the Meridian Empire, it was showing the galaxy a new way to evolve.